Alright. Hi everyone, it's Anthony from 2381. I've been captain of 2381 for 3 years. I also started the team, and this is just some of my advice for newer teams starting up and how to really manage that team and make it work effectively. And this is just what I've observed for 3 years and what I want to observe from our newer teams that are starting up now at Colonel Bai, but we'll see. Maybe I'll redo some of these later on. But the first topic that I'm going to cover today is the entire team structure. So at our school, in our clubs, we usually have a large number of people in each team, anywhere from 8 to 10 people on each team, which is comparatively quite a lot. And that's just for the VEX teams. Okay, this year we're starting our first team. We'll see how that goes. It'll be another adventure, but it'll be a fun one. But in terms of VEX teams, we've noticed that in a large number of people setting, that there is a lot of subdivision of work. There is a really set structure, and there really needs to be that sort of set structure and communication between that structure. So let me talk about the structure in general and why we found that it works out the way it did. So in this team, there's going to be 3 really important people. Person in charge of programming, person in charge of building, and then there is going to be the actual captain, and this captain will fit into one of these 2 or maybe even is on the drive team. So whoever's our driver is super important. Our captain fits into one of these 3. Generally, historically, our captain has been our driver just because of reasons, but it doesn't have to be. The captain could be the build or the programmer. Sometimes the lead programmer is a driver, lead builder is a driver. So driver, programming, building. And generally that's how the subdivision of work usually goes. So some people will be like, oh, I'm super good at building, or oh, I'm super good at programming, and then that's just what they'll jump into. But generally what we've observed, programming you only really need 2 or 3 people. Max. 2 is probably fine. And that's one person who knows everything and knows the code in and out. And that one other person to supplement them in case this first person falls sick. So these 2 will work on code together, and if there's a question you ask one of these 2 people. That's it. You pick 2 people and you go ask them. And then you can figure out what the code is, what the problem is with the code, and they can help you fix it. We've noticed that if you have a lot of people on code, like let's say 5 people are on code, you ask any one of them about what the issue is and they'll just be like, no, go to someone else. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, I don't really understand, I wrote it with this guy, then they have to go find it, and it's really complicated. 2 people who know everything. That doesn't mean other people can't write code. So these 3 people can also write code. It's just that these 2 people need to make sure they understand completely how this code works. Because code can get really complicated in your robot, and it's hard for someone to understand it all, but it's really important that they do because it'll help prevent issues where we're like, something broke, what broke? And then nobody can figure it out, and we spend like hours going through our code, all right? That's one thing. Programming is a division of 2 people, maybe more, but most importantly, there's one person in charge of programming. Then there's the other person in charge of building. So this person is usually going to be working closely with the driver to say, okay, look, driver, what do you want from us? What do you want your robot to be like? And the driver, usually being the team captain, is able to give direction, say, okay, we want a robot that has one specific feature. It has an X drive. Another specific feature, I don't know, like a reverse double 4 bar or a reverse double 6 bar. I want a half cut lift that's really fast and driven by one motor. I want a punch that rotates around the ball or whatever. And then that's because the driver knows that this is like kind of what they want and what they can work with. Because there are different drive styles, and like if I built a robot for me to drive and then I went to pass it on to 2381C and then they drove it, they would break the entire robot in about 2 seconds. Okay? Because their driving style is literally just run out whatever the hell. If they're in my way, we will push them out of the way. Which we'll see how it goes this season, but yeah, that's how they drive. We drive a little bit differently. We prefer lighter robots, we prefer faster robots. What happens when you put a not very strong robot into the hands of a driver who thinks that it is bumper cars? Not great things. So the driver does have input into what the robot should look like, but as a whole, the team needs to be able to say, look, this is what the game is like, and this is what sort of is happening. And that's when the drive team falls in. So there's 3 people on drive team. So there's usually 1 person building and 2 coaches, and this person in the middle here can also have a controller in their hands, just in case this person can't. and then this person here can take over. So this is like your backup driver without having to pass the controller over. Saves some time. Also, looks cooler to have two people holding joysticks. So these two are your coaches. So what coaches do on the drive team is just make sure that they know what's happening on the field and they can tell the driver, because the driver's gonna be focused really on making sure that the robot's doing what it needs to be doing now, and the coaches should be looking forward to kind of anticipate what's going to happen next. And these coaches, generally, having seen these games, are able to say with the driver, look, this is what a robot's super good at, and this is what a robot's not super good at. And then the rest of the team should also be able to review match footage and say, okay, these are all the things that we need to fix, and these are all the things that we did good and we can make better. At the start of the year, at the start of the season, it's the hardest to do that, just because we don't know what it's going to be like. So then that's when having just general experience saying, okay, this type of lift will work better, or this type of shooter would work better, and then doing a lot of testing would work better. Generally, if you're programming, you wouldn't do hardware. If you're hardware, you wouldn't do programming. Okay, because hardware, it needs a lot of people doing work. Just because there's always so much stuff to do, and to keep on top of the other competition, you want people building the robot constantly. Generally, you cannot drive practice when you build unless you have two separate robots. If you have two separate robots, great, that's very amazing, you have money. If you do not have two separate robots, what I would say is make small changes to the robot every so often, or like continually make small changes, and then just hand it over drive team. So be like, spend 30 minutes making a change, and then let the driver practice for 30 minutes. Just so that they can use the change and then give you feedback. Feedback is going to be super important. So driver has to work with programming and hardware to build the robot that he or she likes, but the entire team has to still know about how that robot should be looking like. Just, they all have input onto what the robot should be able to do and why that would be advantageous. So every so often the entire team needs to meet up, have a roundtable discussion, and be like, what should a robot be doing good and what should not be doing so good? Like, what can we focus on and what can we not focus on? Is it like, we're gonna focus on caps, or we're gonna focus on like flags, for example? Or is it like, focus on scoring speed, or focus on defensibility? That type of thing. Now, I haven't went to hardware yet because it's kind of messy. So you're gonna have multiple people on hardware. We found that the most number of people you can have working on a robot at once effectively is 3 people. And that's if the robot's raised up and then it's on the corner of a table. Like not super corner because then it might fall off, but like corner of the table. You can get 1 on the edge and then 2 on the sides. If you really want to push it, you can get 1 person, like if it's like the end like of a U-shaped table, you can get 4 people around it. Or maybe even 5, side, 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 corner, corner. But it does get super crammed when all of your hands are inside the robot twisting and turning. So generally 3 people working on the robot that's got their hands in the robot, turning screws, changing things out, zip ties, whatever. Now those 3 people, generally it's easy to have 2 runners supporting them. If your like, materials or parts aren't close to that robot that you're building, and generally it isn't because you can't have the stuff right on the robot because that's where you're putting robot parts, then those 2 runners can help those 3 builders a lot by just getting parts and then allowing the builder to keep continually working. These 2 runners don't have to just say like, I'm going to be a runner. You can rotate these different builders on different days, or it could be that these runners don't have as much experience and are there to help out, to like watch these builders build and learn. It doesn't matter, but having 2 runners does definitely help. So that means 5 people on build team, and then 2 on programming, that's 7, and then you have your 3 drive team, that's usually 10. Obviously there's going to be some overlap, so it can go down a bit and it can go up a bit, but generally that's how we would run a team, and that's the most number of people we would ever run on a large team. Now smaller teams, we find that there's just overlap everywhere. So like 1 person will be the main programming guy, and 1 person will be the main builder, and then the driver is one of those 2, and then there's just the other people there to help them out in case like they need something, or there's like there's an accelerated time limit that they need to meet, etc. But the super important thing about having that team set up is keeping everybody inside the loop and communication, and that's a whole other video that I don't want to do today. So setting up your team, give defined structures and roles, and if you have a multiple team organization, make sure that all the team captains are meeting up with the mentors so they know what's happening in terms of competitions and scheduling, etc. And then those team captains go down and then they report to those respective subcategories, and then these subcategories like report to everyone else. So someone who's just on the build team should not be asking the mentor about something unless it's like build related, in which case the captain should be able to answer the question, and if not, then the mentor. Just because otherwise the mentor gets really pissy at us. And then you could have a separate sponsorship or like business department on the side, but for Vex you don't really need it. For that business department, for us at least, just we find that having it split across all the teams is better, and then allocating just money to each team each season seems to work out fine, and it's fair for everyone. So you're not competing with yourself when you go for sponsorships. It's just one team, 2381. We're going for sponsorships. Awesome. It's not like 2381X and 2381C are going for sponsorship. Then they don't get. Like, it's just more. So yeah, that is all. See you at the next one.